What's up guys? In today's video I'm going to be talking about Huel shakes and meal replacements and whether or not you should be incorporating them on a daily basis and technically whether or not they are healthy as a nutrition source and food source. Let's dive straight into it. Okay, so in the space of entrepreneurship, I often see meal replacements and shakes like Huel being advocated by individuals like Alex Becker. Now, I'm also an individual who utilizes Huel shakes quite frequently on a daily basis actually, but it's not something which I would be consuming over food necessarily, nor something that I'd be consuming all day, as opposed to having solid food sources incorporated into my diet also. I'm going to explain the reasons for that in a very simple manner in today's video. But again, when it comes to incorporating products like meal replacements or anything like a Huel shake, for example, you guys really should be doing your research prior to consuming these products. Obviously not necessarily just taking the information being advocated online by individuals in this space in general, okay? So again, Huel shakes, I'm a massive fan of them. I do consume about 2 or 3 per day. But having said that, referring back to the point I made at the beginning, I would rather be consuming solid food sources in terms of nutrition, optimizing my gut health, for example, and also my nutrition sources in terms of optimizing what I'm actually putting into my body. The reasons for that are pretty simple. So if I go and assess the ingredients that are in a Huel shake, I believe this is the vanilla flavor it is. One of the first ingredients, and obviously I'll get this to be shown up on screen as well, is actually oats. Now this is obviously a powder form. The reasons why as this is significant is because obviously oats are a good food source, and obviously something which is fairly nutritious and fairly good for you potentially, depending on your gut health also. Again, if you guys haven't conducted your gut health testing kits, like your volume testing kit, do that prior to even taking on any of this information. Obviously different food sources respond differently to different people's bodies, etc. But again, oats in general are pretty positive for most people. Now, the reason as to why this is an issue or meal replacements are an issue is because essentially what you're doing is taking a really good ingredient like oats, for example, and you are blending that into powder form and therefore making it a little bit more easy for the body to absorb, but potentially less nutritiously dense as opposed to, for example, a solid form. So the best form of oats would be rolled oats, which you get in like Quaker Oats tub, which your grandma might have had when you were a kid in the cupboard or whatever. Now you're simply consuming the powder version of that, and obviously from a nutrition standpoint it's not quite as good or not quite as optimal. So that's just something to be aware of, and that essentially sums up the issues with meal replacements in general. No matter how positive the ingredients are, and obviously if you assess this, we have oats, pea protein, ground flax seeds, which all sound like very good nutrition sources, but no matter how good those nutrition sources are, you are just consuming a powdered version of that, so it's not going to be as positive as the actual solid food version of that would have been in the first place. Okay, so yeah, so again, basically you're consuming the grade C version of the product as opposed to grade A version of the product, which would be solid foods. Now, the reasons to why most individuals in this space might want to be consuming Huel shakes, and myself included in this category, I must admit, is because from a time efficiency standpoint, it is great. If you look at each shake, you'll be consuming about 400 calories per serving. You simply blend it up and you drink it straight away, as opposed to having spent 15 minutes, 10 minutes, even 30 minutes consuming or obviously prepping your food. So if you guys aren't doing any meal prep or you're not prepping your meals in advance, this is a really great tool. And for someone like myself who's burning about 4,500 calories per day, because at the moment I'm doing half marathon training and also obviously my strength-based work, this is a great source of getting extra calories in, which is from a fairly nutritiously dense source, as opposed to consuming something which is more like generic in the fitness space, like a mass gainer, for example. So from that perspective, it's, as I said, 400 calories, fat 13 grams, carbohydrates 38, protein 29. So quite high on the protein spectrum of things actually. But it's also, it's a pretty good source to be consuming if you guys are looking to get in further calories. As I said, I'm burning 4,500 calories per day. I don't want to be losing weight, but I also don't want to be consuming 4,500 calories of solid food every day. Otherwise, I'm spending the majority of my time either eating food or preparing food as opposed to focusing on my business. So I'll often consume, and in my deep work blocks, which primarily consist from between 8 o'clock in the morning to about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, just Huel shakes, and I'll have 3 or 4 of them. So that's going to equate to roughly, 1,200, 1,600 calories. It's a very easy food source for me to be getting in, as opposed to consuming food sources. And again, also you have to assess the fact that our body, in terms of processing food, is going to be utilizing quite a lot of blood to actually process the food if it's solid food. Whereas with a liquid shake like this, for example, less so. As a result of that, more blood can go to the brain, and therefore when it comes to cognitive abilities, focus, clarity, etc., it would be more of a prime state for flow work as well. So if you're not fasting, this might be a great option for you to be consuming in the morning, as opposed to having solid food in the morning. Again, I'm quite a big advocate of incorporating intermittent fasting from a cognitive standpoint and reaching an optimal flow state. But currently speaking, for me, in terms of my adrenal response to fasting, I am not fasting. So I do have liquid calories first thing in the morning as opposed to consuming solid foods. It has the benefit of both in my opinion also. Again, in terms of other food sources, in terms of other ingredients on this, we have flax seeds, of course, which is great in terms of a nutrient standpoint, really high in omega-3s. As I said, the protein content is pretty high in this. The vitamin mineral content is pretty positive also. But having said that, these are all artificial vitamins and mineral sources. In terms of research, there is association to a degree between artificial vitamins and mineral sources and cancer potentially in the future also. That's only in a very, very small amount of people, so it is something to be aware of. And again, products like this are fairly modern, of course, so in terms of research and obviously data, we haven't collected huge amounts of it yet. So it is something to be aware of when it comes to artificial source of vitamins and minerals and having them too much, consuming too much of them, if that makes sense also. Okay, so we also have a product in here, or an ingredient in here, MCT oil, which is medium chain triglyceride powder from coconut oil. Which may be, you guys may read that as an ingredient and may think, okay, that's a pretty healthy source, but actually it's primarily just saturated fat. And again, consuming too much saturated fat isn't particularly positive either. The reason why I think Huel have incorporated that ingredient in this product is because from like the keto fan perspective, they'd be thinking, oh great, MCT oil is in there, it's gonna be awesome. I obviously incorporate that in my diet, but that's cancelled out by the fact, or neglected by the fact, that there's 38 grams of carbohydrates per serving. So from a ketosis perspective, obviously the total opposite of what you want to be achieving from that perspective also. So obviously the MCT oil is going to be providing a majority of saturated fat. Obviously consume too much of that's not particularly positive. Having said that, the saturated fat in each serving is pretty minimal, so it's only 2.3 grams, so on the very low end of the spectrum as opposed to anything too alarming. So again, it's one of those kind of small nuances you want to be assessing and obviously looking for as well. In conclusion, in terms of whether you guys should be incorporating meal replacements or Huel shakes in your diet as opposed to solid food sources, again, obviously solid food sources are going to be more positive for you from a nutrient standpoint and obviously in terms of optimizing your body in terms of what you're feeding it. Having said that though, this is a great source if you are looking for a meal replacement, and obviously if you guys are needing to consume high amounts of calories like myself for example, and you are running a multi 6, 7 and 8 figure business, you don't have time to prepare food necessarily, or you're in a rush or on the go, these are great sources. And obviously in terms of nutrient standpoint, ingredient standpoint, it is pretty positive overall. So again, I personally utilize this on a daily basis. And yes, in conclusion, I would definitely obviously look to optimize having nutrient sources in terms of solid foods as opposed to meal replacements, but this is a great second option if you guys are busy. Obviously you guys don't necessarily like preparing food. If you guys don't have a meal prep service in place and you guys are running, obviously as I said, multi 6, 7, 8 figure businesses, this is a great resource to have and a great tool to have. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Give it a thumbs up. Obviously leave any questions you have in the comment section and subscribe to the channel.